Mr. Collins had everything a man could dream of. His mansion stood on the edge of the city, tall glass walls reflecting the sky like a mirror. His garage was filled with luxury cars, each worth more than most people's entire homes. His company stretched across countries, and his name was whispered in every business circle with awe and fear. Yet inside his heart there was a cold emptiness he could never explain. He had money, respect, and power, but not peace. Every evening he would sit in his large, silent study and feel the weight of loneliness pressing against his chest. His house was quiet, too quiet for a man who lived among such grandeur. The only voices that filled the mansion belonged to his staff, who came and went silently, afraid to disturb their boss. Among them was Angela, a hard-working maid in her late 30s. Angela was not just a maid, she was a survivor. Life had thrown her every challenge possible. She worked 2 jobs, lived in a small rented apartment, and carried the entire burden of her life on her tired shoulders. But even in all of this struggle, there was one thing that gave her strength: her little daughter Maya. Maya was only 10 years old, but her eyes carried the weight of wisdom far beyond her age. She was not like other children who complained about toys or sweets. Instead, she always held a book or a small notebook in her hands, scribbling thoughts and dreams that her mother never had the chance to dream. Angela sometimes brought Maya with her to work because she had no one else to care for her. The billionaire had noticed the girl more than once. At first, he thought she was just another child, sitting quietly in a corner. But slowly, he realized something unusual about her. Her silence was not empty, it was filled with thought. Collins began to watch her secretly. Whenever Angela cleaned, Maya would sit on the kitchen floor with her old notebook, writing and humming softly to herself. She never touched anything that did not belong to her, never roamed the house with curiosity like most children would. She kept her distance, respectful and quiet, as if she understood that she was standing in a world that wasn't hers. There was something about her discipline and gentleness that unsettled the billionaire. One evening, after a long business meeting, Collins came home tired and restless. He saw Angela working in the living room while Maya sat near the fireplace with her book. The soft glow of the fire reflected on the little girl's face as she scribbled something, her lips moving silently, as if she was whispering her dreams to the paper. Collins sat down in his chair, watching her more closely than before. For the first time in many years, curiosity burned in his heart. What went on inside this little girl's mind? What would she do if she thought no one was watching her? Was she really as different as she appeared? The thought stuck with him like a seed in dry soil. By the next evening, he had made a decision. He would test her, not to harm her, not to embarrass her mother, but to see if his instincts were right. He wanted to know if this child carried something rare, something money could never buy. That night, he arranged his study carefully. He left his gold watch on the side table, placed his expensive pen carelessly near the edge, and even allowed his wallet to hang loosely from his pocket. He sat on the sofa and leaned back, pretending to be lost in exhaustion. His eyes slowly shut, though not completely. He kept them half open, trained carefully to catch the slightest movement. Angela, unaware of her boss's strange plan, excused herself to the kitchen to prepare tea. For the first time, Maya was alone in the room with the billionaire. The house was silent except for the ticking of the clock and the sound of fire crackling in the fireplace. Collins kept his breathing steady, pretending to sleep. But inside, his heart was racing with excitement and tension. He was about to discover who Maya really was. The room was quiet. So quiet that even the smallest sound of firewood cracking in the fireplace felt loud. Mr. Collins lay back on the sofa, his body still, his breathing slow and steady, pretending to be asleep. He had placed his watch, his gold pen, and his wallet in clear sight. His plan was simple. He wanted to see what Maya would do if she thought no one was watching. Deep inside, he told himself it was only an experiment, a harmless curiosity. But in truth, he was testing something bigger, whether innocence and honesty still lived in this world. Angela had gone into the kitchen to prepare tea. Her soft footsteps faded, leaving Maya alone with the billionaire. The little girl looked around, holding her small notebook tightly against her chest. At first she didn't move. Her dark eyes studied Mr. Collins, who appeared to be sleeping. For a moment her lips curved into a small smile. She whispered softly, "He looks tired." Slowly Maya stood up and walked closer. The billionaire's heartbeat quickened, though he made sure not to move a single muscle. His eyes, almost shut, watched carefully. Maya stopped near the sofa just a few feet away. She saw the shiny pen on the table. She noticed the glittering watch. Her small gaze rested on the wallet sticking out from his pocket. Any other child might have been tempted, just to touch, just to play, just to feel what wealth looked like. But Maya did not reach out. She simply stood there for a long moment thinking. Collins held his breath. Will she take it? Will she be like everyone else, greedy and careless? But to his surprise, the little girl bent down, not toward the wallet, not toward the watch, but toward the blanket that had slipped from the sofa arm. She lifted it carefully with both hands, her little arm struggling under its weight, and gently placed it over the billionaire. She tucked it around his shoulders, making sure he was warm. Her fingers brushed lightly against the fabric as she fixed it, her movements filled with care. Then she whispered, "Mama says people who work hard deserve kindness even when they look scary." The words struck him like a hammer against glass. He had spent his life surrounded by people who bowed to him for money, who smiled only because of his power. Yet here was a child, the daughter of his maid, showing him genuine kindness when she believed he would never know. Still, Collins stayed silent, not ready to end the act. Maya, thinking he was still asleep, sat down quietly on the floor near the fireplace. She pulled out her old notebook, the corners worn and pages nearly falling apart. She flipped it open and began writing, her lips moving as she whispered each word to herself. Collins strained his ears, desperate to hear. Slowly, her soft voice reached him. "One day, I will build a big house for Mama. She will never have to clean for anyone again. I will buy her a bed that doesn't squeak and shoes without holes. And I will make sure she never cries when she thinks I am sleeping." Her voice cracked, and she paused, wiping her eyes quickly with the back of her hand. But she kept writing, determined. The billionaire felt his throat tighten. He had expected to catch a child's greed, but instead he had witnessed her heart. Every word she whispered was like a mirror reflecting his own past, the childhood he had buried under layers of money and success. His chest ached. He remembered nights when he too had promised his mother the same things back when they had nothing. He had worked day and night to build his empire, but somewhere along the way, he had forgotten the softness of dreams. He had forgotten the purity of love. Maya kept writing, her tiny hands moving quickly across the paper. Collins wanted to close his eyes fully, to pretend he hadn't seen, but he couldn't. He was frozen, not by fear, but by something deeper, something he hadn't felt in years. For the first time in a long time, Mr. Collins realized he wasn't the one testing the little girl. The little girl was testing him, and he wasn't sure if he would pass. The firelight danced across the room, making shadows move along the tall walls of the mansion. Maya sat cross-legged on the floor, her tiny body curled close to her old notebook. Mr. Collins, though pretending to be asleep, could not take his eyes off her. Every small action of the girl struck him deeper than any boardroom deal or business speech ever had. She wrote with determination, her lips whispering words only she could hear. Her handwriting was uneven, her pencil almost worn down, but her heart poured onto the pages. After a while, she stopped writing and closed her eyes for a moment, hugging the notebook to her chest like it was the most precious treasure in the world. Then she looked at Mr. Collins again, lying under the blanket she had placed on him. Maya tilted her head slightly and whispered, "He looks so lonely." Those words pierced the billionaire more than anything else. Lonely. Nobody ever dared to call him that. Not his business partners, not his staff, not even the media. People called him powerful, arrogant, clever, or ruthless, but never lonely. And yet, from the eyes of a 10-year-old, his truth was revealed in one simple sentence. Maya stood up again and took a careful step closer to him. Her small eyes noticed the glitter of the golden watch once more. It sparkled under the dim light, almost inviting her. For a second, she reached out her hand, but not to touch it. Instead, she gently pushed it further away from the edge of the table so it wouldn't fall and break. Then she adjusted the wallet that was sliding out of his pocket, carefully tucking it back as if protecting it for him. Collins's chest tightened as he watched. Every move of this child was opposite of what he had expected. Where he had set a trap, she had only shown care. Where he had left temptation, she had chosen honesty. And where he had offered silence, she had filled it with kindness. Maya returned to the fireplace, her notebook still pressed to her chest. She whispered again, almost like a prayer. Mama deserves more. One day, I will study hard. I will write books, maybe even teach. And then Mama will never have to clean anymore. She will rest like a queen. Collins closed his eyes fully for a moment, fighting the rush of emotion rising in him. This was not just a child. She was a mirror of everything he had lost long ago. He remembered his own mother's rough hands, the way she worked day and night to feed him. He had made promises, too. Promises to give her a better life. And yes, he had given her money, houses, and cars. But somewhere in that journey, he had lost the gentleness of those promises. He had built walls around his heart so high that no kindness could climb through. Until now. The billionaire opened his eyes slightly again, only to see Maya kneeling and quietly praying. God, she whispered softly. Please keep Mama safe. Please give me strength to help her. And please, make rich people kinder, so they don't make my mama cry. Those last words shook him. He felt as if the little girl had reached directly inside his chest and pulled out the truth he had buried. Tears burned his eyes, but he quickly blinked them away. A billionaire like him did not cry, not in front of anyone. But tonight, in the silence of his mansion, he realized his wealth could not shield him from the innocence of a child. He had thought he was testing Maya, but every second showed him something else. She was testing his humanity. The question was no longer what she would do. It was what he would do now. For the first time in many years, Mr. Collins was afraid. Afraid not of losing money or power, but of failing a test given not by the world, but by a child with a pure heart. And deep inside, he already knew Maya had passed the test. The real challenge had just begun for him. The mansion was still wrapped in silence, broken only by the soft crackle of the fireplace. Mr. Collins lay motionless on the sofa, still pretending to sleep, but inside he was no longer calm. His chest felt heavy, and his thoughts raced faster than ever. He had not expected this. He had thought the little girl might reveal a moment of weakness, like all humans do when tempted, but instead she had revealed something far more powerful, her heart. Maya sat back down near the fire, her thin arms hugging her notebook as if it were a shield. After a moment, she opened it again, flipping to a page filled with childish handwriting and tiny doodles. She pulled her pencil from behind her ear and began to write. Each time her pencil touched the paper, her lips whispered words as though she was too shy to speak them aloud, but too determined to keep them inside. Collins shifted ever so slightly, making sure not to ruin the act. His eyes, still half closed, tried to catch the words she whispered. At first the sound was too soft, but slowly the words floated across the room, carried by her small, hopeful voice. One day, I will buy Mama a house with big windows so the sun can come inside. No more dark apartments, no more broken doors. She paused, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand before continuing. I will fill the fridge with food so she never goes hungry. I will buy her new shoes that don't hurt her feet, and I will make sure she never has to clean anyone's floor again. The pencil scratched across the page as she wrote faster. Her words were not just dreams. They were promises. Promises built from a child's love. Promises that carried the weight of her mother's sacrifices. Collins felt his throat tighten. The air in the room seemed heavier, as though the walls themselves were listening to the child's secret. He wanted to sit up, to tell her she deserved those things, but he couldn't. Something inside him forced him to stay still. Perhaps it was guilt, perhaps it was shame, or maybe it was the fear of breaking the fragile purity of the moment. Maya continued, her voice trembling but steady. Sometimes, I hear Mama crying when she thinks I am sleeping. She thinks I don't. No, but I do. I will make her proud. I will show her that her work was not wasted. One day she will smile, and that smile will be the most beautiful thing in the world. Those words were like arrows piercing the billionaire's chest. For years he had measured success in numbers, in deals, in the applause of strangers. But here was a little girl measuring her success in her mother's smile. The contrast was so sharp it left him breathless. He thought about his own mother again. How she had worked in a small shop when he was a boy. How she had hidden her pain and hunger so that he could eat. He remembered promising her the same things Maya was now writing. But unlike Maya, he had forgotten the love behind those promises. He had built an empire of wealth but lost the softness of his humanity. Maya's small hands trembled as she closed the notebook. She hugged it tightly to her chest and whispered, "This is my secret. One day, Mama will see it come true." Collins's eyes burned. He wanted to applaud her, to tell her she was braver than most adults he had ever met. But he stayed frozen, his heart caught between admiration and regret. For the first time in decades, he felt powerless. Not because he lacked money or control, but because he realized how empty his riches were compared to the richness of a child's love. As Maya lowered her head and quietly prayed again, Collins understood something he had never admitted before. The test he had created was no longer about her. It was about him. And the little girl had already revealed the truth. His wealth meant nothing if it couldn't build the kind of dreams that fit inside a child's notebook. Angela returned from the kitchen, carrying a tray with a teapot and 2 cups. She walked carefully, her tired hands steady as always. To her, this job was survival. Every step inside this mansion reminded her of how fragile her position was. One mistake, one misunderstanding, and she could lose it all. And if she lost this job, she and Maya would have nothing. When she entered the study, she froze. Maya was sitting near the fire, her notebook tucked under her arms, while Mr. Collins suddenly sat up on the sofa. The blanket that her daughter had placed on him slipped down to his lap. Angela's heart skipped a beat. Her face turned pale as fear rushed through her. Had Maya touched something? Had she offended her boss? "I'm so sorry, sir," Angela said quickly, setting the tray down with shaking hands. "She didn't mean to disturb you. Please forgive her. She knows not to touch anything. I'll make sure it doesn't happen again." Maya looked up, wide-eyed and confused by her mother's panic. She opened her mouth to speak, but Collins raised his hand gently, stopping both of them. His eyes were locked on Maya, and his expression was unreadable, soft, yet heavy. "Angela," he said in a voice quieter than she had ever heard from him. "Your daughter, she has a heart bigger than this house." Angela blinked. She wasn't sure if she had heard correctly. For years she had worked in silence, avoiding eye contact, keeping her head down. She was used to orders, corrections, and the cold tone of a man too rich to notice her humanity. But now, there was something different in his words, something almost emotional. Collins leaned forward, his eyes still fixed on Maya. "Tell me, child, why didn't you take the watch? Or the money? They were right there." Maya shifted nervously, clutching her notebook tighter. Her voice was small, but steady. "Because, sir, Mama says stealing makes your hands heavy, and heavy hands can't build dreams." Angela's eyes widened in shock. She looked at her daughter, who stood there with innocent honesty shining in her face. Her throat tightened as she whispered, "Maya?" Collins's chest rose and fell with a long breath. Those words hit him harder than any deal lost or won. Heavy hands can't build dreams. The simplicity of it broke through his layers of pride and reminded him of a truth he had long buried. Angela, still worried, stepped forward quickly. "Sir, she's just a child. Please don't misunderstand her words. She didn't mean to say anything wrong." But again, Collins raised his hand. His eyes softened even more, and for the first time there was no arrogance in his voice. No, Angela. She meant everything right. More right than most adults I know. Angela's lips trembled, unsure of how to respond. Her heart swelled with both fear and pride, fear that she and her daughter might be overstepping, but pride that Maya's innocence had shone so brightly in front of a man like Collins. Collins turned his gaze back to the little girl. "Maya," he asked gently, "what is in that notebook you always carry?" The girl hesitated, hugging it tighter. "It's just my dreams," she whispered. "May I see them?" he asked. His voice carried no authority this time, only curiosity. Maya glanced at her mother, who nodded slowly, though still nervous. With trembling hands, Maya stepped forward and placed the notebook on the table in front of the billionaire. Collins reached for it carefully, as if it were made of glass. He opened it and read the messy handwriting, the simple sketches, the lists of promises. Page after page told the story of a child who wanted nothing for herself, but everything for her mother. Angela stood quietly, her eyes filling with tears as she watched her boss read. She had never known Maya wrote all of that. She had never realized her little girl carried so much love in her small heart. Collins closed the notebook gently, his jaw tight. He looked at Angela and Maya, and for the first time in many years, the billionaire's eyes looked wet as if fighting back tears. "Maya," he whispered, "your dreams are more valuable than everything I own." The room fell silent. Angela pressed her hand to her mouth to stop herself from crying, while Maya simply stood there, her innocence shining like a flame in the coldness of the mansion. And in that silence, Mr. Collins realized that the confrontation he had prepared was not with the maid or her child. It was with himself. The night grew deeper, and the silence of the mansion became heavier. Mr. Collins sat with the notebook resting on his lap. Its pages were filled with dreams written by a child's shaky hand, dreams so pure that even his wealth could not compare. He traced the words with his finger slowly, as though each line carried a weight he had never carried before. Angela stood behind him, nervous and unsure. Her heart beat fast. She didn't know what her boss was thinking. She feared he might be angry, that he might call her careless for bringing Maya into his study. She whispered, "Sir, I promise she didn't mean to bother you. Please don't be upset with her. She's just a child." Collins looked up at her, and for the first time his eyes held no coldness. "Angela," he said quietly, "your daughter has more wisdom than most people I have met in my life." Angela froze. She didn't know how to respond. Her lips trembled, and for a moment she thought she might cry. She lowered her gaze, whispering, "She is all I have, sir. I just want her to have a better life than mine." Collins looked back at Maya, who stood silently near the fireplace, her little hands folded in front of her. He asked softly, "Maya, tell me, why do you write these dreams? What makes you so determined?" Maya lifted her eyes, her small voice, steady but filled with emotion. "Because, sir, I see Mama working so hard every day. I see her hands hurt. I see her cry at night when she thinks I'm asleep. And I don't want her to feel pain anymore. If I work hard, maybe I can change things. Maybe I can give her a life where she smiles every day." Her words hit Collins like a wave. He felt his chest tighten as if someone had placed a heavy stone upon it. He remembered nights when he was a boy, whispering similar promises to himself, hoping to lift his mother out of struggle. He remembered how pure those dreams had been before greed and ambition twisted them into something else. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. His voice was low, almost a whisper. "Maya, do you know how rare your heart is? Most people in this world think only about themselves. But you only think about your mother." Maya shook her head softly. "Mama always says love is not about yourself. Love is about making someone else's life easier." Angela gasped quietly, tears filling her eyes. She turned away for a moment, ashamed to show her emotions in front of her employer. But Collins saw, and for the first time, he didn't see his maid. He saw a mother, a woman who had given everything to raise her child with love and values. The billionaire sat back slowly, the weight of the moment pressing against him. For years he had measured people's worth in numbers, in how much profit they could make, in how loyal they were to his company. But tonight, a child had taught him that true worth was measured in love, honesty, and sacrifice. Collins looked at Angela, then at Maya, and made a silent decision. His voice was steady now, but different, warmer, almost human. Angela, your daughter deserves every chance to build those dreams, and I want to help her. Angela's eyes widened. Sir? Her voice trembled. She didn't believe what she had just heard. Collins turned back to Maya. From tomorrow you will have everything you need to study, books, tutors, school, whatever it takes. And one day when you are ready, I will make sure those dreams in your notebook are not just words. They will become real. Maya's small mouth opened in shock. Her eyes filled with tears she tried to hold back. She looked at her mother, then at the billionaire, unsure if she could trust her ears. Angela covered her mouth with her hand, tears running freely now. She whispered, God bless you, sir, God bless you. But Collins said nothing more. He only sat there, staring into the fire, realizing that tonight it wasn't him who had given a gift. It was Maya. Her innocence had reminded him of something he thought he had lost forever, his own humanity. The next morning, the mansion was quiet as usual, but something inside it had changed forever. Mr. Collins did not sleep much that night. He sat in his study long after Angela and Maya had gone home, the little notebook still on his desk. He turned through its pages again and again, each word burning into his mind. For the first time in years, money, cars, and mansions meant nothing to him. The only thing echoing in his head was the sound of a little girl's voice whispering, "Heavy hands can't build dreams." When Angela arrived the next day, she entered nervously, expecting her boss to act cold again, pretending nothing had happened. She was used to people forgetting kindness once the moment passed. She carried her cleaning tools and was ready to disappear into silence. But something was different. On the kitchen table lay an envelope with Maya's name written on it in elegant handwriting. Angela frowned and picked it up with shaky hands. She opened it slowly, and inside was a letter and a thick packet of papers. The letter read, To Maya, your dreams are too precious to remain inside a notebook. From today, you will attend one of the best schools in the city. Your books, uniforms, and every expense will be paid in full. And when the time comes, your education will continue through university, no matter where in the world you choose to go. Never stop dreaming, never stop writing. The world needs people like you, Mr. Collins. Angela gasped, covering her mouth with her trembling hands. Tears spilled from her eyes, rolling down her cheeks. She had imagined many things in her life, but never this. She pressed the papers against her chest as if they were life itself. Her knees felt weak, and she sank into a chair, whispering, Thank you, God. Thank you. Maya, who had followed her mother inside, peeked at the letter. When she understood what it meant, her eyes grew wide. She looked at her mother, then at the grand staircase where Mr. Collins stood quietly watching them. For the first time, he wasn't dressed like a cold businessman. He wore a simple sweater, and his face carried no mask of pride. Mr. Collins, Maya said softly, holding her little notebook close to her chest. Did you really do this? For me? Collins swallowed hard, feeling the lump in his throat. He nodded slowly. Yes, Maya, for you, and for your mother, because your dreams reminded me of something I had forgotten. Angela wiped her tears and stood, her voice shaky. Sir, I can never repay this. I don't even have the words. You don't need to repay me. Collins interrupted gently. It is I who owes you. Your daughter gave me back something I thought I had lost forever. Angela tilted her head in confusion. What is that, sir? Collins's eyes softened as he looked at Maya. My humanity. The room fell silent. For a long moment, The only sound was the quiet breathing of three people whose lives had just changed forever. Angela pulled Maya close, hugging her tightly. Maya's small arms wrapped around her mother, and she whispered, "Mama, our dreams are coming true." Collins turned away, standing by the window as he looked out at the vast city. For years he had believed wealth was his greatest achievement, but now as he watched the sunlight pour across the skyline, he realized something much deeper. True wealth was not in what he owned, but in the love, honesty, and innocence that still existed in people like Maya. That day marked a new chapter. For Angela, it was the promise of dignity and hope. For Maya, it was the beginning of her journey to build dreams with hands that would never be heavy. And for Collins, it was the rediscovery of a heart that had been buried under gold for far too long. The billionaire had tested the maid's child, but in the end, it was the child who had tested the billionaire, and she had changed him forever.